What if the most dangerous weapon China just deployed isn't a missile, a warship, or a hypersonic glide vehicle, but a single decision that quietly shifts the entire balance of air power in Asia? Because right now, something is happening in the skies above the Pacific that most people haven't fully understood yet. And once you see it clearly, you won't be able to unsee it. Before we go any further, if this kind of deep, honest analysis is what you're looking for, hit that like button right now. Subscribe so you never miss a video, and share this with someone who actually wants to understand what's happening in the world. Not headlines, not noise, real analysis. Now, let's get into it. China has just armed its J-10C fighter jets with the PL-17 air-to-air missile. That sentence sounds technical. It sounds like something for defense nerds and military analysts. But stay with me, because what this actually means for the United States Air Force, for Taiwan, for every country in Asia deciding who to trust right now, is far bigger than a weapons upgrade. This is about a shift in who controls the sky. And the sky, as any military strategist will tell you, controls everything else. To understand why this matters so much, you need to understand where we are right now. Not just in terms of hardware, but in terms of credibility, confidence, and the quiet war of perception being fought between the United States and China every single day. Start with the J-10C itself. This is a single-engine, fourth-generation plus fighter, built by China's Chengdu Aircraft Corporation. It's not China's most advanced aircraft. That title belongs to the J-20, their stealth fighter. The J-10C is more like China's workhorse, affordable, capable, and increasingly popular on the international arms market. And that last point matters more than most people realize. In May 2025, Pakistan flew J-10C fighters in actual combat against India. The result shook the defense world. 6 Indian aircraft were reportedly shot down, including what intelligence sources believe was at least 1 French-built Rafale fighter. Pakistani losses? 0. Now, combat results are always complicated. Terrain, tactics, surprise, and electronic warfare all play a role. But 0 losses against a modern Western aircraft is not a number anyone in Washington or Paris can simply dismiss. Then came the exercises in Qatar. Pakistani J-10C pilots went up against Qatari Eurofighter Typhoons in simulated air combat. The Eurofighter is widely considered one of the best air superiority platforms in Western Europe. Highly maneuverable, technologically advanced, flown by experienced NATO-trained pilots. The score in those exercises? 9-0 in favor of the J-10C. Now, simulations are not war. Pilots will tell you that. Strategists will tell you that. But 9-0 is not a fluke. And the question you have to ask yourself is this. If the J-10C is already performing at this level against Western aircraft, what does it become when you pair it with the most powerful air-to-air missile ever put on a fighter jet? That's exactly what China just did. The PL-17 is extraordinary, and not in a good way if you're an American pilot. It is 6 meters long. It weighs 500 kilograms. It travels at speeds above Mach 4. And it has a range of somewhere between 400 and 500 kilometers. Let that sink in. 500 kilometers. That is roughly the distance from Washington, D.C. to Boston, covered by a missile moving faster than a bullet launched from a fighter jet you might not even see coming. To put that in comparison, the best American air-to-air missile currently in service is the AIM-120D AMRAAM. It has a range of roughly 160 to 180 kilometers under optimal conditions. The PL-17 outranges it by a factor of nearly 3. But here's the part that should make every defense planner in the Pentagon deeply uncomfortable. The PL-17 wasn't designed to shoot down enemy fighters, not primarily. It was designed to kill the aircraft that American fighters depend on to stay in the fight. Tankers, radar planes, command and control aircraft, the flying infrastructure that holds American air operations together. Think about what that means in practice. The F-35, which is America's most advanced operational fighter, has a combat radius of roughly 600 nautical miles on internal fuel. In the Pacific theater, where the distances between air bases and potential conflict zones are enormous, 600 miles is often not enough. The F-35 is completely dependent on aerial refueling tankers, specifically aircraft like the KC-135 and the KC-46, to extend its reach and stay in combat. Without those tankers, the F-35 simply cannot complete many of its missions. Now imagine a J-10C launching a PL-17 from 400 kilometers away. The tanker doesn't have to be near the front lines. It doesn't have to be anywhere close to the J-10C. The missile's range makes proximity irrelevant. A J-10C pilot can fire from a position of relative safety, beyond the detection range of many airborne sensors, and still reach the tanker. If that tanker goes down, the F-35s it was supporting suddenly face a very different calculation. Do they press on with limited fuel? Do they turn back? Either way, the mission changes. The risk changes. The balance of the engagement changes. This is what military analysts call a force multiplier. Not because the J-10C suddenly becomes more powerful than an F-35 in a one-on-one dogfight, but because the PL-17 lets a relatively affordable aircraft threaten the entire nervous system of American air power projection. And this brings us to the deeper problem, the one that doesn't fit neatly into a press release or a congressional hearing. The United States Air Force hasn't procured a new, cost-effective, low-maintenance fighter platform in over 2 decades. Every aircraft in its current inventory, the F-22, the F-35, the legacy F-15s and F-16s still in service, demands enormous maintenance resources. We're talking about tens of maintenance hours for every single hour of flight time on some of these platforms. That has a real consequence. When your aircraft spend more time in maintenance bays than in the air, your pilots fly fewer hours. When pilots fly fewer hours, they are less proficient. When they are less proficient, they are less effective in combat. Former Deputy Commander of Pacific Air Forces, General David Deptla, stated this concern openly. He pointed out that Chinese pilots are now flying aircraft that are, on average, significantly newer than what their American counterparts fly. And because of the maintenance burden on the American side, Chinese pilots may actually be accumulating more flight hours, more time in the cockpit, more time practicing the exact skills that matter when a real conflict begins. Meanwhile, the J-16, China's heavy multi-role fighter, carries a radar dish 3 times the physical diameter of the one on the F-35. Radar detection range scales with the size of the antenna. A bigger dish means the ability to detect and track targets at far greater distances. The J-16's combat radius is also nearly double that of the F-35. These are not marginal differences. These are structural asymmetries that compound over time. And then there's the F-35 program itself. At a total lifecycle cost, now estimated at over $2 trillion, it is the most expensive weapons program in human history. And yet, an internal Pentagon report recently confirmed that the software upgrade process for the F-35 is, in the words of the report, stalled. Lockheed Martin has missed its delivery deadlines repeatedly. The most recent software package was described by people close to the program as deeply problematic. This matters because a modern fighter jet is essentially a flying computer. The sensors, the weapon systems, the electronic warfare suites, they all run on software. If the software doesn't work, none of the hardware reaches its full potential. A $2 trillion aircraft with software problems is not a $2 trillion advantage. Now look at this from where China is sitting. They watch all of this. They study it. They plan around it. And while America has been pouring money into a program that is struggling to deliver, China has been scaling a fighter that costs a fraction as much, performs impressively in real and simulated combat, and is now armed with a missile that fundamentally changes the threat calculus in any Pacific confrontation. And the global market is responding. Indonesia recently placed an order for 42 J-10C aircraft. Egypt decided to purchase J-10C fighters to replace aging American-made F-16s. The reason Egypt made that choice isn't that the F-16 is a bad aircraft. It's that Washington refused to allow Egypt to upgrade its avionics and declined to sell it advanced beyond visual range missiles. The J-10C offer came with no political conditions, no export restrictions, no phone calls asking how the aircraft would be used, just the plane, the weapons, the technical support, and no strings attached. That is an increasingly attractive package for countries that are tired of navigating Washington's political requirements. And every country that makes that choice, every procurement office that signs with Beijing instead of Washington, is not just a lost sale. It is a shift in long-term strategic alignment. Countries that fly Chinese aircraft need Chinese spare parts, Chinese software updates, Chinese maintenance training. That kind of dependency doesn't end when the contract is signed. It deepens every year. Here's where you need to stop and think about the bigger picture, because this isn't just about aircraft specifications and missile ranges. It's about what this moment reveals about the direction of the competition between the United States and China. Right now, stop for a second. If this breakdown is giving you genuine clarity on something the headlines are missing, share this video with one person today. Just one. Because understanding this matters, and most people are only getting the surface version. Share it, and let's keep going. The United States is currently dealing with the aftermath of a costly military campaign in the Middle East. According to a classified report sent to Congress, over 1,000 Tomahawk cruise missiles were fired in the first 39 days. Each Tomahawk costs approximately $2 million. That represents roughly 1/3 of America's entire global stockpile. The Center for Strategic and International Studies estimates it will take at least 3 years to restore those stockpiles to pre-conflict levels. 3 years, not 3 months. 42 American aircraft, fighters, helicopters, drones, were destroyed or seriously damaged. Nearly 30 MQ-9 Reaper drones were lost, each costing around $30 million. One F-15E Strike Eagle was shot down, the first American fighter lost in actual combat in more than 20 years. An F-35 made an emergency landing after taking fire. At the same time, China has quietly deployed over 100 naval and coast guard vessels. They sent no defense minister to the major regional security summit in Singapore. Just scholars, they said? Just observers? But what they are observing is everything. They are watching the depletion. They are watching the strain on American logistics and manufacturing. They are watching Allied confidence in American judgment erode in real time. Japan gets roughly 75% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. South Korea and India face similar vulnerabilities. When a war disrupts that flow and regional partners weren't consulted before it started, those partners start asking quiet but serious questions. And here is what makes this moment so significant. China doesn't need to fire a single missile to gain from all of this. Every week, America's attention and resources are consumed elsewhere. China's relative position strengthens. Every dollar spent replacing depleted munitions is a dollar not invested in next-generation Pacific capabilities. Every ally that quietly questions American judgment is a relationship that Beijing can potentially cultivate. This is not an accident. It is strategy. Patience as a weapon. Restraint as leverage. And now paired with a fighter jet that's winning on export markets and a missile that threatens the infrastructure American air power depends on, that strategy is becoming more tangible every month. So where does this leave the United States? Is the gap truly as large as the pessimists suggest? Or is there more resilience in the American defense system than the critics acknowledge? The honest answer is both things are partially true, and that's exactly what makes this moment so important to understand clearly. America still has the F-22, arguably the most capable air superiority fighter ever built. It has a Navy with 11 carrier strike groups. It has decades of combat experience that no adversary has matched. Its pilots, even with reduced training hours, are among the best in the world. And it has allies, Japan, South Korea, Australia, the Philippines, that collectively represent enormous combined military capability. But capability without credibility is fragile, and credibility is built on consistency, on judgment, on the willingness to absorb costs. When procurement decisions are delayed, when arms packages to partners are used as bargaining chips, software programs stall, when allied capitals start calculating their own options independently, credibility quietly drains away. The PL-17 on the J-10C is important not just as a weapon, it's important as a signal. It says that China is not waiting for parity to assert itself. It is finding asymmetric paths to challenge American dominance. That approach has a name in strategic theory. It's called offset strategy. And the United States has used it against adversaries before. The question that every defense planner, allied government, and analyst should be sitting with right now is not simply whether the J-10C with the PL-17 can defeat an F-35 in a dogfight. That's the wrong question. The right question is whether the overall architecture of American air power in the Pacific, the tankers, the radar platforms, the logistics chains, the allied relationships, the procurement timelines, is being stress tested in ways that the system is prepared for. Because if China can threaten the tankers, it doesn't need to defeat the fighters. If it can win arms contracts in Jakarta and Cairo, it doesn't need to win every diplomatic argument in Washington. If it can build a missile that holds American force multipliers at risk, it changes the risk calculation for every mission. That's the real competition, not the next dogfight, the next decade. This moment will likely be studied by historians, not when everything changed overnight, but when the direction became undeniable to anyone paying close enough attention. Empires don't usually lose their primacy in a single battle. They lose it through accumulated decisions that slowly compound. The question now is whether the United States is in that kind of accumulation, or whether what looks like drift is a course correction. Before you go, you made it to the end of this, and that means you're exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. So here's what I want you to do. Leave your answer in the comments below. Do you think the U.S. Air Force can close this gap? Drop your honest take. Subscribe if you haven't already, because next week we're going deeper into Pacific defense dynamics. And share this video with someone who should be thinking about these questions but probably isn't yet. What happens next depends enormously on whether decision makers treat this moment as the early warning it is. The PL-17 on the J-10C is not the end of American air power, but it is a very clear message. And messages like this one have a way of only meaning something when someone is actually listening.